Harrisville, Rhode Island, 1971. The Conjuring House. Carolyn Perrin stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow. She had just finished tearing the kitchen ceiling down to expose the vintage framework of her farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The project had been a tedious, messy one, so she looked forward to the family outing her husband Roger had planned for the couple that evening. Once the babysitter arrived, Carolyn and Roger treated themselves to a night in the town, featuring an Italian dinner and a movie. It was midnight when the couple returned, and although it was a long day, the night would prove to be even longer. Roger fell asleep immediately, and Carolyn not long after. Not realizing she'd been asleep for a few hours, she woke abruptly to a rapid thumping of footsteps approaching her bed. Sensing someone beside her, she asked who she assumed to be her daughter what the matter was. Attempting to pull herself out of her slumber, she reached her arm out, knowing she could identify her child by touch, but grabbed a handful of nothing. Somewhat startled, she opened her eyes to see in the pale light of the moon the disgusting figure of a disfigured woman hovering over her. Ragged dress cinched at the waist, a being of another time with a face like a wasp nest, broken neck, snapped, head hanging to the side with no eyes and no mouth, gray mesh cobwebs, no hands, no feet, floating above. It was so cold, she couldn't breathe, couldn't shriek despite her attempts. It drew closer and closer. Carolyn's chest tightened, the stench of rotten meat overwhelming. Momentarily extricating herself from a state of paralysis, she reached over and grabbed Roger's shoulder to shake him awake, but he wouldn't budge. Frantic, Carolyn snatched the blanket in trembling fingers. In an attempt to pull it over her head, she revealed Roger's back, shredded and scratched as if it had been clawed by wolves. Still unable to scream, she shut her eyes as the stinking corpse apparition closed in on her. She knew what was next. Nothing. Opening her eyes, the grotesque figure was gone, although the rotten stench lingered. I'm Dave Wilkins, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories. Harrisville is a small village in the town of Burrillville, Rhode Island, about 23 miles northwest of Providence, and was named after the 19th century manufacturer, Andrew Harris. The village was previously named Rhodesville after Captain William Rhodes, an 18th century privateer. Harrisville was the home to many historic mills, all of which have either been burned, demolished, abandoned, or renovated. Other than mills, the village of Harrisville is also known for its farms, including the Arnold Farm and the Sherman Farm. The Arnold Farm was established in 1736 when the house was built and was known as the Dexter Richardson House at the time, named after the man who built it. It was then owned by several generations of the Arnold family. Over the years, the Arnold family suffered many tragedies on the property, including the suicide by hanging of Mrs. John Arnold, a death by poisoning, and the brutal rape and murder of 11-year-old Prudence Arnold. She was killed by 22-year-old William E. Knowlton. When she went back on her promise to marry him, he slit her throat with a straight razor, nearly decapitating the girl. The other notable farm in the area is the Sherman Farm. The farm was owned by a man named Judson Sherman, who married 32-year-old Bathsheba Thayer in 1844. Her husband ran a profitable produce business from his 200-acre farm in Harrisville, but the community would soon see the newlywed wife as a threat. Bathsheba Sherman had been babysitting her neighbor's son when the young boy mysteriously died. Local doctors established that the child's skull had been impaled with a small, albeit fatal tool. Despite the fact that Sherman was the last person to tend to the boy, the case never went to court, and local women were enraged. Ultimately, Bathsheba Sherman's story remains largely unsourced, while records confirm Judson Sherman died in 1881. The Perrin family, who occupied the Arnold estate from 1971 to 1980, believed the ghost of Bathsheba Sherman terrorized them for a decade at the house on Round Top Road. The Perrin family moved into the Harrisville farmhouse in January of 1971, where a few members of the family immediately witnessed their first of what would be many apparitions. When the family first arrived, it was during a snowstorm. The previous owner, Mr. Kenyon, was there with his son to help them move in. Nancy, one of the Perrin girls, saw a man standing in the corner with a slight smile on his face. When she asked Carolyn who he was, she said she didn't know who she was talking about. Two other girls also later admitted to seeing the man, but when Nancy saw him, She also saw him vanish into thin air. After Mr. Kenyon helped the family move in, he invited Roger to take a quick walk with them. Roger found this peculiar considering the weather conditions, but agreed to join the old man. The men were silent for the majority of the walk, but as they started to approach the house again, Mr. Kenyon looked Roger dead in the eye and told him, "For the sake of your family, leave the lights on at night." Roger thought it was an odd thing to say, but didn't think anything of it until months later. In the first few months, everything seemed normal for the most part. The family was settling into their new home, the 4 oldest daughters were adapting to their new school, while Roger and Carolyn tried to find ways to keep the drafty house warm, since the previous owner sealed off the fireplace for some reason. But some odd things were happening that the family didn't realize were paranormal until much later. Things like an infestation of large black flies would demonstrate unusual behavior, like aggressively flying into people's faces, lining up on the windowsill where they would die in large numbers and simply disappear. The strangest part of the infestation of flies wasn't the fact that it occurred during the winter. It was that numerous exterminators were called, but when they showed up, the flies would disappear, unable to be located. The other unusual occurrence was things would constantly go missing. Sisters would blame each other, Roger would blame everyone, and everyone would always deny being the culprit. These accusations would always lead to heated arguments, but the strange thing was that the objects would never stay missing. They would always reappear in a different place. Carolyn had finally had enough of the freezing house. One week while Roger was away, she decided that she was going to unseal the sealed-off fireplace. It was another messy project, but at least the house would be warm again. It was at this point, however, the occurrences would get much, much worse. During her original tour of the property, Mr. Kenyon had directed Carolyn into the barn. He was so proud of it, as he should be. The hurricane of 1938 had destroyed many historic buildings, but not the barn on Round Top Road. It survived. The master shipwright who built it was a brilliant craftsman. Carolyn marveled at the hand-cut beams and arches above. She hadn't noticed the hand scythe hanging overhead, dangling precariously from its highest beam more than 30 feet from the ground. The barn was very dark. Maybe she didn't notice it before, or maybe it wasn't there. A few weeks after moving in, while all but the youngest of the children were at school, Carolyn went out to admire their barn. Entering from a smaller side door, she left it wide open for additional light. It was completely silent inside the barn. Carolyn could hear herself breathing, could hear the beating of her own heart. She wondered why it felt so much colder inside the barn than outside. As warmly dressed as she was in her heavy leather jacket and thick cotton turtleneck, she shivered. Turning around to exit the barn, she heard a disquieting sound above her head. Could a bird have flown in through the open door, she wondered? It sounded like frantic fluttering of wings. Whoosh, 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 slicing through acrid, stagnant air. Not a bird, but a hand scythe was flying through the air towards her. It resembled kind of a boomerang, thrown with velocity, spinning in circles, seemingly defying the laws of gravity, hovering overhead, spinning in place. Suddenly it plunged toward her. She was shocked, paralyzed with horror, unable to retreat. It struck her hard, slicing across her neck and shoulder. Had she not been wearing her heavy leather jacket, she surely would have been killed. Not long after the incident in the barn, Carolyn and the girls were cleaning the kitchen while Roger was away on business. There came a knock on the kitchen door. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Pettigrew. She was stopping by to drop off a cake she'd baked for the family. Carolyn was in the shower, so Andrea, who answered the door, invited Mrs. Pettigrew in and called to her mother to announce the arrival of their guest. As Carolyn was putting on a robe, a coat hanger lifted from the rack beside her and struck her repeatedly on the head and neck. Carolyn began screaming, an alarm beckoning everyone in the kitchen to run into the bathroom where they all, including Mrs. Pettigrew, witnessed the attack. Once the beating subsided, the coat hanger fell to the floor. This was a traumatizing event for everyone involved. They all returned to the kitchen where they sat in silence. Mrs. Pettigrew's face was as red as her auburn hair. She decided to forego cake and coffee and headed to the door. Before she left, she leaned closely to Carolyn and whispered an esoteric warning. The Kenyons always kept their lights on overnight. All night. Every night. Then she left and never returned again. Nancy, the second oldest of the 5 daughters, had a friend named Katie. One night, Katie arrived at the farmhouse for a sleepover. Carolyn welcomed the girl into the house, and she and Nancy hurried upstairs to the bedroom where Katie revealed that she had snuck in a Ouija board. Nancy was apprehensive about using it at first, but Katie and Nancy's younger sister Cindy convinced her to go along, assuming it was just harmless fun. The trio brought the game into the chimney closet, which was more like a small room where a chimney once was but was removed, transforming the empty space into a warm closet. They sat in a circle and placed the board in the middle. "Who's in this house?" Katie asked. Almost immediately, a low guttural moan began to erupt from the room. Out of nowhere, it exploded into an ominous roar. Clutching their ears, the three brave teenagers were instantly reduced to quivering, sniveling girls, paralyzed by abject terror. Suddenly, a dark figure appeared as an enormous shadow moving across the walls. As the terrified girls stared disbelievingly at the apparition, they were overcome by a terrible odor like rotten meat. The roar grew louder. The house was shaking, windows rattling, the girls all screaming and crying. The roar growled a warning. "Get out, little girls! Run for your lives!" They did exactly that. Scurrying over one another, they ran downstairs, past Roger sleeping peacefully on the couch, to the kitchen where Carolyn and Andrea were casually cooking dinner. No one heard a thing. Once Carolyn calmed the three hysterical girls down, they fessed up to using a Ouija board. Carolyn went from sympathetic to furious and sent Katie home. One night, not long after Carolyn's terrifying experience with the broken neck apparition, she and Roger were asleep in their bed. Just before dawn, the bed started vibrating and moving to the center of the floor. Disoriented, she couldn't understand what was happening until the foul smell filled the air. Now she was fully alert. Suddenly the room was in flames, and she was surrounded by at least 10 spirits. In a panic, she reached over to grab Roger by the hair in an attempt to shake him awake, but his limp, lifeless body wouldn't budge. Again, his back had been scratched beyond mortal recognition by the claws of a demon. The spirits started chanting, surrounding the bed, 2 child spirits standing at each side of the footboard. They chanted in unison. "Beseech thee, leave. Afore ye, go. Beware the flame, the fiery glow. Was mistress once, afore ye came, and mistress here will be again. We'll drive ye out with fiery broom. We'll drive ye mad with death and gloom." At that moment, the broken neck apparition manifested again. All the other spirits surrounding the bed began grinning ominously. The bedroom door slammed shut, quelling the would-be option to escape had she not been paralyzed with fear. The apparition's horrid sight and smell caused Carolyn to retch. She was sure she'd lose her mind before she lost her life. As the creature leaned in, inches from Carolyn's face, she lurched forward and the apparitions disappeared. Shaking, Carolyn collapsed and prayed. The bed remained in the center of the floor, and the smell remained but slowly began to dissipate. Carolyn left the room and was standing in the kitchen, sobbing, when Roger walked in. "The goddamn bed is in the middle of the floor and my back is killing me," he complained. When she explained what happened, he turned as white as a ghost, and she led him into the mirror to show him his back. Nearly 3 years had gone by when Carolyn opened the door on a dark and stormy night to Ed and Lorraine Warren, the foremost experts in the paranormal. They were sent to the house by a friend of the family who called Carolyn a few days prior to notify the family that help was on the way. Roger was intentionally absent for the Warrens' visit, wanting nothing to do with the world-famous ghost hunters, considering them to be an illegitimate line of work. Carolyn informed the couple of everything that was happening on the property since they moved in. By the time they left, they were both excited and equally distressed by what they had heard. In between the first and the second visit from the Warrens, Carolyn had convinced Roger to not only be present for the next visit, but to allow the Warrens to interview the children. At first, he was completely against it, accusing Carolyn of buying into the Warrens' phony games. It appeared as though he wasn't going to be swayed, but he changed his mind mid-argument when a glass flew off the shelf and bounced across the floor. During the next visit, Ed began interviewing the girls while Lorraine took notes. As each girl told their stories, Carolyn became more and more distressed, being forced to relive some of the terrifying things that the family experienced. Cindy, telling about the voices that chanted, "There are 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall," over and over. Christine telling about the time she woke up locked in a chest surrounded by a familiar stench of rotten meat, and Nancy sharing about the time that she got locked in the chimney closet even though the door doesn't lock. All of this proved to be too distressing for Carolyn, so the visit had to be cut short. The next visit from the Warrens was a surprise visit while Roger was out of town. They were able to complete the interviews with the girls and tour the house. While touring the house, Lorraine experienced multiple dark presences. Notably, upstairs in Andrea's room, she pressed her hand against the wall and abruptly pulled it away and glanced intently at Ed but said nothing. After several minutes, she muttered, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go back to where you came from. Leave this house." She also experienced the ominous presence of a hateful spirit named Bathsheba. She found this presence highly concerning due to just how hateful and dark it was. Before leaving, Lorraine advised Carolyn that she should seal off several rooms in the house due to the overwhelming amount of negative energy. The Warrens were convinced the house was afflicted with a demonic presence, and the family was in the oppression stage of a demonic possession. At this moment, Nancy confessed her story about the Ouija board in the chimney closet. Lorraine's soft disposition became stern and severe, startling everyone. Under no circumstances should a Ouija board be brought into this house, she instructed. Nobody objected. Over the next few weeks, the Warrens stayed in contact with the Perrons, calling the house once or twice a week, speaking with whoever answered the phone. They wanted the Perrons to allow them to cleanse the house to rid it of the demonic presence, but Roger wouldn't allow it. One of Lorraine's phone calls to the house resulted in a conversation with the oldest daughter, Andrea. Andrea voiced her concern over her mother's deteriorating condition. She explained that since they moved into the house, her mother had experienced alarming weight loss, she appeared to have aged a decade, and how recently she seemed very withdrawn and wandered in the woods by herself numerous times a day. Lorraine found this urgently concerning and called the house later that evening to speak with Carolyn directly. She told Carolyn that she believed she was in an advanced stage of demonic oppression and was dangerously close to a full-on possession. She urged Carolyn to allow her and Ed, accompanied by a team of paranormal professionals, to come to the house to perform a seance. Carolyn protested the idea, knowing Roger would absolutely not allow it. Lorraine countered by asking if she'd at least allow her and Ed to come alone to try and talk to Roger about it. Carolyn agreed. Carolyn informed Roger over dinner that the Warrens were going to visit later that evening. He was annoyed and didn't want to be a part of it and told her to cancel the meeting. When Carolyn told him they were already en route, he became furious, throwing his napkin in the middle of the table and storming into the living room. When the Warrens did arrive, they weren't alone. With them was a medium named Mary, a priest, a PhD psychologist, and a team of camera and equipment engineers. Roger became immediately apprehensive, directing his anger towards his wife. She protested that she didn't know they wouldn't be alone. Ed and Lorraine came in first to explain their strategy and to de-escalate the situation. Lorraine explained her concern for Carolyn. Roger was notably angry, but with some convincing agreed to let the crew in. However, he wanted the kids out of the house first. Nancy went off to her friend Katie's house, but the other girls were unable to find anywhere to go on such short notice, so Roger sent them to their rooms. Christine and April went right to sleep, but Andrea and Cindy snuck downstairs and peered through the unlatched door to spy on the event. Roger stood, arms crossed, scowling as the team lugged in their equipment, while Carolyn sat expressionless in the living room. Once everything was set up, Mary, the psychic medium, took over. She went over with Carolyn everything that was going to happen, but she seemed not to be listening. With each passing minute, she became more and more frigid, fighting to maintain her composure. When her teeth began to chatter, her shivering body began to quake from the cold. A confrontation was occurring. It was in the room with them. The assault had begun. Carolyn has no recollection of any of the events that occurred beyond this point in the evening. Mary lit candles in a circle in the center of the dining room table and instructed everyone to sit around it. Everyone took their place at the table except Roger. His anger resurfaced. He agreed to allow the ritual to take place, but had no intentions of taking part in it. He stepped away from the table and walked into the parlor. Ed and the psychologist followed him and assured him this was necessary for his wife and it couldn't be done without his participation. Carolyn, by now, was almost in a completely catatonic state except for the continuous stream of tears trickling down her face. Roger looked at his wife and reluctantly agreed to participate. Once they were seated, Mary instructed everyone to join hands. Roger protested again. This time, Lorraine snapped at him, demanding him to sit down and join hands. Andrea and Cindy recognized the look on their father's face from their hiding spot. He was furious, not used to being spoken to like that, but he did as he was told. "We are gathered here tonight to reach across, so to call forth the spirits," Mary said. The lights went out. Only the glow of the candles remained, casting shadows across the darkened walls. Andrea clutched her sister as they witnessed wind whirling around the dining room. Roger's eyes widened as Carolyn's body recoiled. Her head lifted, and she began mumbling incoherently. Mary asked who was there with them. Foreign sounds began emanating from the woman. Everyone knew it wasn't Carolyn's voice they were hearing. Her hands pulled free from the grasp of those on either side. Her fingers curled, nails impaling the palms of her hands. Excruciating pain showing on her face, and she began to moan like a wounded soldier. Her eyes sprung wide open. They were not her eyes. Suddenly, both of her legs drew up to her chin as if her body was forming a ball. A low-pitched guttural growl emerged from deep within her being as her quaking body trembled in place. Cindy and Andrea observed in horror from their hiding spot. Just as they were about to run back upstairs, something wicked burst forth from their mother. A dark transformation of energy. It was not of this world. Everyone present observed it in awe. Only Mary's eyes remained closed. She never saw it coming. Words of an ancient language began spilling from Carolyn's shriveled lips. Roger's face showed an expression of which his daughters were not familiar. Abject terror. The screams came so suddenly, no one was prepared. Her tiny voice transformed into something angry and evil, something impossible for a human body to produce. Roger had had enough. He abruptly rose from the table and shouted to stop. Ed stood up to grab Roger's flailing arms. A howling, growling, horrific pain exploded out of Carolyn. Her chair lifted off the floor and flew straight back into the parlor. She hit the floor with a violent force. Someone screamed. Roger leapt towards his wife. Ed tried pulling Roger back. He whipped around and punched Ed directly in the face, knocking him to the floor. All hell broke loose. Shutters were snapping and clicking. People were yelling. Lorraine raced over to her husband, and Roger scooped Carolyn off the floor. He demanded everybody get out of his house at once. He was livid. Ed backed away. The camera crew went to collect their equipment, but it had all been destroyed. Smashed to pieces. 2 grown men left in tears. Ed and Lorraine followed without saying anything to the family, but the psychic medium Mary leaned close to Carolyn and whispered a cryptic message. Your answer lies beneath the bellstone. The Perrin family remained in the house for another 7 years, and although Carolyn recovered, the family continued to witness horrific paranormal events. Recently, Rob, Jesse, and I took a trip down to Rhode Island to check out the property and do a paranormal investigation of the Perrins' house ourselves. The Perrins moved out over 40 years ago, but the current owners allow paranormal enthusiasts to book the house for overnight investigations. So, the 3 of us, accompanied by Andrew, his wife Catherine, Jesse's wife Dee, and our friends Emily and Soph, made the trek down to Harrisville, Rhode Island. Rob and I went down earlier in the day to check out the gravesite of Bathsheba Sherman. Her gravestone had been vandalized numerous times by imbeciles, but we were able to locate it because it's next to her husband Judson Sherman's gravestone. People have reported seeing a transparent woman in the vicinity of the grave, but we saw nothing out of the normal. We did, however, notice her gravesite was a few degrees colder than the ones surrounding hers, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Pulling into the driveway of the Perrin house on Round Top Road at twilight was an ominous experience. The house looms behind the enormous barn in front, and the property is surrounded in barbed wire, security cameras, and no trespassing signs. After the 2013 Conjuring movie, the owners at the time experienced countless incidents of people trespassing and taking pictures. We began our investigation by setting up cameras in the basement and living room for a live stream and to catch any paranormal activity that might occur while we are somewhere else in the house. After that, we went upstairs to Cindy and Christine's middle bedroom to set up a spirit box and night vision camera. We also set up a few motion detector lights that go off when something goes by it. While we were asking the spirit box questions, Jesse got a phone call which he inexplicably answered. While he was on the phone, a voice came through the box clearly saying, "Jesse."
I hate them.
Okay. Who do you hate?
Jesse.
Yes, Jesse.
Then the motion detector lights started going off, and the voice came through again saying, "Asshole." He ended the call. Later in the evening, Andrew, Rob, and Catherine were in the basement doing a different spirit box exercise. Catherine was seated in a room on one side of the basement with the noise-canceling headphones on, hooked up to the spirit box, so the only thing she could hear was what came out of the device. Andrew was on the other side of the basement. Andrew's job was to stand and wait for Catherine to call out what she hears from the box. While standing in the dark, Andrew asked, "Where are you?" A few moments later, Catherine heard "forward" come through the headphones, so she called out, "Forward," and Andrew took a few steps forward down the dark hallway. She heard it say "forward" again, so she called it out again, and again Andrew took a few steps forward. Andrew was now at the far end of the basement in the corner by the root cellar. Catherine hears the word "here," so she calls it out. Andrew says, "Hi." Almost instantly, Catherine hears "hello," and she calls it out, much to Andrew and Rob's surprise. Back upstairs in the library, the rest of us were doing a similar exercise where I was blindfolded, wearing the noise-canceling headphones, and was waiting to hear the voice come through. While I was waiting in silence, everyone observing would ask questions to any nearby spirits to provoke them into an interaction. I heard nothing and felt nothing, but after I took the headphones off, Dee informed me that 3 times she asked the spirits to touch my shoulder, and every time she did so, I would scratch my shoulder. I did it subconsciously, so I can't recall doing it. Towards the end of the night, I was in the basement by myself with an EMF detector, which will light up and beep if any unusual electromagnetic energy is detected in its close proximity. I was down there for about an hour in the dark, asking questions that people tuning in on the live stream were requesting. A few questions made the EMF blink up to a level 2 or 3, but nothing too crazy. But then somebody wrote something in Latin, and I read it out loud. The EMF detector reacted immediately and started redlining after being for the most part inactive the whole night. We didn't see any apparitions and didn't get a chance to meet Bathsheba Sherman, which is probably a good thing, but overall it was a good experience in what is absolutely one of the most infamous haunted houses in America, the Conjuring House.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. This is episode number 11 of Hometown Ghost Stories. And that was the Conjuring House, Harrisville, Rhode Island. I'm here. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley and Dave Wilkins as usual. What's going on, gentlemen?
What's up?
I think I have a new favorite episode of our show.
I'm glad it's done.
A lot of work. Also joining us on the show once again. He was on last week's show. He is the one and only Captain McSlugs. Andrew, welcome to the stream.
Hello.
Welcome. A lot of people in chat we want to acknowledge here. Fraley was here hanging out. Casher has been here. Very vocal as usual. JJ on Facebook. Soph is up in here. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in.
What's up? So this was a fun one. I was glad to finally get it done and over with and out, because it was a really cool experience going to that house and reading Andrea's books, which were really good, really long, but really good. It was cool to put it all together. And man, the books are totally just completely different from the movie. Like that, if you saw the movie, you know that the story I just told is not the same story as the movie. So it was cool to be able to put it all down and put it together.
Yeah, well done. Obviously, very well researched. Those books are lengthy, and you did your homework on it. And you mentioned we talked about the movie on a few. I
don't know. Visually, just for the podcast listeners, Dave just held up the two books, and it was literally almost like a phone book together.
It's like a Bible and a half.
Yeah. So just to represent how much went into this one epised.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the books are great. I loved them.
Yeah.
But a lot of reading.
So let's start with with the movie. So just to get this out of the way. So people that have seen the Conjuring movie, first of all, it's one of my favorite horror movies. I thought it was absolutely terrifying. We've rewatched it since I think I had seen it like the first time and hadn't seen it again. We rewatched it recently once we came back from the actual house, and it still holds up. Still a terrifying movie. I know it's like super mainstream, but
it's a great movie, and they got a couple of things right in the movie. Now, the reason it was a different account than the movie is because the movie was not based on the books. The movie was based on Ed and Lorraine's case files, which is why Ed and Lorraine were the main characters in the movie and not the Perrin family. But obviously they had Ed and Lorraine there. In the movie, there was an exorcism, but in real life, it was a seance. The exorcism or the seance was not performed by Ed or Lorraine. It was performed by a medium named Mary. Bathsheba was part of it, obviously. She was the main antagonist of the movie, as she was in real life, allegedly, although the family's been backtracking on the connection with Bathsheba Sherman since they found out that she didn't actually live on the Arnold Farm. She lived on the Sherman Farm. But that's neither here nor there. In the movie, the dog, Sadie, was killed by a ghost. That didn't happen in real life, but they did have a dog that was killed.
I feel like the
previous house.
Maybe the movie didn't want to do it, but do you know what the dog's name was?
So the dog's name, before the family moved to Harrisville, they lived in Cumberland, Rhode Island, and before they knew anything about this house, before any of it, they had a dog, and the dog's name was Bathsheba. So yeah. That's super weird.
Just super crazy coincidence. And they had some crazy stuff happen while they were in Cumberland. So like they were like terrorized by like these neighborhood kids who came in and massacred their cats.
Yep.
And I don't remember how the dog died, but I think it was.
So the kids were walking the dog, and while they were walking the dog got loose and ran across the street. So Andrea, who had the dog, who let go of the leash, calls the dog back, and as the dog turns back to cross the street, dog gets hit by a car, survives. Cops show up and shoot the dog in front of the kids.
Oh,
so that event, the family was like, we got to get out. They went away for a weekend, and when they came back to the house being broken into and all the cats being massacred. It was actually one cat massacred, the other cat got away. And then shortly after that, a guy driving a truck had a heart attack, crashed through their fence and died in their front yard. So it was like those three events. They're like, we got to get the F out of here. And that's when they fled to the farmhouse.
Yeah.
Me and Dave actually went to that house before we went to
in Cumberland?
We went to the Cumberland house first.
Yeah, because you guys went down there early.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of like touch on the whole. We wanted to just get the story from beginning to end. So we started in Cumberland. We worked our way over to Harrisville to the Conjuring House and kind of hit the town. But yeah, we did go see that house.
We did. And I left that part out of the video because I had to cut so many cool stories from the book out because it was already so long and I just didn't have time to put in the Cumberland stuff.
So just to close the deal on the movie. So the movie basically was all just Hollywood. I mean, they took like the basis of like the house being haunted, the name Bathsheba, and that was almost it. You know, obviously Ed and Lorraine Warren being involved, but their involvement was much different in real life.
Completely different.
I feel like they also blew it, leaving out the scene where Roger punches Ed Warren in the face. I feel like that would have added to the movie. So
would have, but it wouldn't have worked with the narrative.
Right.
Yeah, they wanted to make
like
the family very wholesome.
But meanwhile,
they wanted to do that, but I think it was more so they wanted to make Ed and Lorraine the heroes in that.
Well, yeah, because they wanted to make this a franchise, right? So like that was the whole point.
Which is also why they incorporated the Annabelle doll in the movie. The Annabelle doll has absolutely nothing to do with that house.
But they got it from Ed and Lorraine's case files, so that's why they were able to tie it together. Because Ed and Lorraine's story, not a Andrea Parent story.
Exactly. And Fraley had mentioned earlier that he noticed that there was ghost orbs in the video. And when I tell you that almost every photo we took, it was mainly the live shots. So photos, like there was a couple of them in the photos. There was actually one, and I'll pull up the photos in a little bit when we get mostly into the investigation part of this show. But almost every photo that we took. So the live shots that they all have them moving around, and it's, you know, and you could tell the difference between dust and orbs because when we were live streaming from the house, I was like, oh, those could be orbs, and people were like, it might just be dust. And it was a very dusty house, very dusty basement, very old house. And we'll get more into it because I'm going to pull up some of the pictures and show you guys. But yes, Fraley, we saw orbs, and not only like when me and Dave were going through this video and editing it, like they were in like every single shot. It wasn't even just one or two; it was every single one. So we'll get a little bit. So that's pretty much it for the movie. The movie was Hollywood, and the Perrin family seems to universally hate the movie, and they hate how they didn't use their actual story because they said that their story was 100 times more scary than what they actually had in the movie, which says a lot because that movie was pretty goddamn scary.
I don't disagree. The books were nuts. Some of the stuff that were in the books. Actually, the scariest, most terrifying story from the books was not even about a ghost. So Nancy had this friend, Lenora, and she was this little shy girl from class that had no friends. She was poor. She was like the youngest of like 6 kids. She had a whole like 5 brothers, and you know she would like show up to class wearing the same clothes, and nobody would talk to her. So Nancy brought her home, and all the sisters loved her, and she would just come over all the time. And you know the girl started to come out of her shell, and they, you know, they're like letting her borrow her clothes and whatnot, and you know having sleepovers. And so one night when Lenora was at her own house, there was a fire in the house. And the kids were all in one bedroom, but the bedroom was cut off by the fire, so the parents couldn't get to the bedroom. So the parents ran out the front door and around outside to try and open the bedroom to the window to the bedroom, and they couldn't get it open. It was jammed shut, and they subsequently watched all 5 of their kids burn to death.
Jesus,
which is just heavy. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put this book down. Like that was the most terrifying story in that book.
Wouldn't you put like something through the window, like just break the window at that point?
Yeah, I don't know if it was like I don't know what kind of window it was. If it was like one of those like heavy duty like slider windows that was jammed. Because you think it's
CIA install it, like a Secret Service install this way. Like you can find a way to break that. I don't know. My kids are inside. I'm finding a way to get through that window. But
yeah, you got to wonder like how much time they actually had by the time they got outside and ran around. If it was just, you know, But that story was kind of rattled me a little bit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there that I wish I could have fit in. But
Yeah,
I mean,
but
go read the books. They're honestly worth the read. House of Darkness, House of Light. Andrea Parrish did a really good job writing them, and really definitely recommend them.
What were you gonna say, Rob?
I was just gonna say, like, when you're making a movie, though, like, obviously you have to change stuff, and you're gonna have to leave a ton out to make one movie. It's not a series, so they had to do what they could with the story while making it screen friendly. You know what I mean? Like, that story's terrifying, but how do you incorporate that story into the movie?
Right.
Or
they changed so much. I mean, they even changed the house. So the original plan was to film at the actual house in Harrisville. And if you've seen the movie and then you just saw the footage from the house that we had, not the same house. The house was a set built for the movie. And the crazy thing about it was the director, Dave, what was the director's name?
James Wan.
James Wan. So the original plan was film at the house. And then once James Wan read the books, he was like, I'm not going in that fucking house.
He said, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to that house, and I'm not going to Rhode Island."
So
and fair, and I think the actual house is more terrifying looking than the movie house. But I don't know how the hell they would have filmed the movie in that.
It
house
was
either.
real. I mean, when you have these older houses, and we have tons of it in New England, you have really low ceilings because everyone was shorter at the time, and I mean, it was just a small house. I don't really know how they would have been able to make it work in there. So it makes sense that they would build a house for it. So it is an interesting thing. So that's pretty much that on the movie. So the book side of things, Dave, you had mentioned that there was a whole lot of things that that you didn't include in the episode, and the things that you did include in the episode were pretty wild.
So just so the bent neck lady apparition.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first experience with the bent neck lady apparition, which was the very opening story I told.
Is that what she called it in the book, or is that just what we're calling it because of House?
That's what I'm calling it because of the House of. What
was it called? Not Blind Man. Oh yeah.
But I mean, the books.
Hell House.
I wouldn't be surprised if
Haunting
they
of Hill
got
House,
the
that's the name,
inspiration of that ghost from this story. Because
the description was
much the
pretty
exact same
close.
thing, and the books obviously came out first. But so Carolyn saw it. She woke up and was scared. She immediately just sketched the image in her notebook. And Andrea, the oldest daughter, later in the morning, she saw the drawing on the nightstand and she cried out like, "Mom, that's the woman I saw in my dream last night." This was the very morning after. And then she told Carolyn that she had a nightmare that a disfigured woman was attacking her mother in bed, and it looked just like the one in the drawing. And Carolyn hadn't at that point mentioned anything to her daughter about it. So that was pretty wild. I mean, I could spend 2 hours talking about all the Grafton farmhouse fields, right? All these different stories, like the 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall. So that was Cindy. She would hear the voices just chanting, "There's 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall," and they would just do it all night to the point where she'd have to like put the pillow over her head to be able to go to sleep.
Wow!
And it was to the point where she just got used to it, which is alarming. Oh, and the hide and clap from the movie. The kids would play hide and seek, not hide and clap. That was something that the movie did, but they would always play hide and seek. And almost every time they play hide and seek, they'd have a terrifying experience. Like one of the girls getting locked in the chimney closet, and then another one getting locked in a chest, and stuff like that. So a lot of crazy things from the books.
Yeah, the actual story is way more terrifying than the movie. And the movie, like you said, Jesse, is actually a terrifying movie, but like all this other little stuff that like would have been really hard to instill in the movie, it's just super creepy. Like,
yeah,
like that's probably why this. I mean, for me, obviously, the Bridgewater episode is always going to be like closer to me because of our
you experienced it.
Right, but like we went here, so like this is going to be the next one because we experienced this house. We might not have experienced what these people did over the course of 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
But to be there and to like just be in that atmosphere, I wish we could go to every single house that we talk about.
Yeah, this would have to be our full-time job.
Well, knock on wood.
One day. So let's talk about the actual investigation. So we did go down to Harrisville. We live streamed from the investigation. So, but we were there for the whole night. So it all started. I mean, we head down to Rhode Island, and we all link up beforehand. Cash was there with Meg, and we all go out to eat before, just at this random dive bar. And weird things started happening the second we got there. So, or not the second, but I mean, like this is when it all started. And this had, I mean, it could have nothing to do with it. Could be a lot of coincidences, but there was like 3 coincidences right in a row that kind of set the tone for the night. And that was, we get there, I get a phone call, which also set the tone for the night. And I step outside and I'm on the phone with my buddy Jay. And all of a sudden it's just right in front of me. Bang! I'm like, whoa, car accident. And I just see this deer just like just rolling down the road. I'm like, holy shit, this thing just got annihilated. So it was sad to see. And I did take a picture of it. I don't know. Maybe I won't include the
No, let's not do that.
dead animal pictures, but the
Sadist.
like right in front of me, and like this thing just like hobbles off the road, clearly a broken neck. Thing's dead. And I was like, that's freaking crazy. So I go back inside. I'm like, guys, this deer just died like right in front of me. Like, oh, great. Animals already dying around you as we're heading to the Conjuring House. You know, I was like, oh man, that's a bit of a bad omen. And then I sit down and then I get attacked by moths. And there's just 2 moths just in my face. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and then like, and this is all within like 30 seconds. And then the door opens at the bar and a bunch of priests just walk in. Like, they just go have a seat at the table.
What?
We're like,
Do we call it? Do we just throw in the towel now?
Just all these signs. I don't know. I mean, coincidences, sure, but I don't know what the hell just happened. And
even before that, like when me and Dave went up early and we went to Bathsheba's gravesite, like he mentioned it in the video, but we brought out that thermometer and we checked the temperature, and it was a 10 to 12 degree difference. Dave, was it something like that?
It was from like 34 to 41, 42.
Yeah.
So it went from like, so we had like 41, 42 on one and like 33, 34 on the other. So like almost 10-degree difference,
Yeah.
which is, that's weird. It's like 1 foot.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I mean,
it
maybe it
didn't
could be
matter.
anything, but
And we went to both sides too. Like we started on her husband's side. That's where we got the 42. Went over her grave and it dropped the 9 to 10 degrees. So we're like, oh, let's check the other side, and then it went back up. And then we came back onto that grave and it dropped again. And every time we would go onto hers, it would drop. And we're like, wow, that's, and we even were like, well, maybe we're moving it too fast and it's like messing it up. And then we just held it and it would do the same thing. So that was pretty interesting.
weird.
I thought that was interesting for sure. So then we roll up to the house, and it was dark by the time we got there. And I think the investigation started at like 7 or 8 p.m. or something like that. And it was fall. I think we did this in October or something like that, maybe early November. But anyway, so we pulled up, and Dave was right. You explained it in the video that there was just like this like really like ominous presence. Like it was obviously dark, but there was the barbed wire. So they, obviously to keep out intruders, all the no trespassing signs. And the first thing that you see is the big barn just right there and pitch black. And, then they had to move the barbed wire out of the way to let you in. And it really set the tone. And it was just pulling in. It was just so creepy.
Barbed wires to keep something in.
Oh, maybe.
maybe.
Yeah. So then we pull in, and then they might, I think some of you guys parked way in like the back parking lot. So, and it takes you right through like the farm. So you go all the way down this dark road, and there was a little video clip of us walking down that road at the end. You kind of land the property, and then you go in. And the second that we walked in, now this was nothing paranormal, but it freaked me out immediately, was the floorboards. It's an old house, so creaky, loose kind of floorboards, but the doors on like this cabinet right next to the front door were super loose. And the vibration from the floor makes this door like rattle, like something's trying to get out of it. Just the doors, and like I walk in, I'm like, it's starting immediately. Just the doors. There's some ghosts are trying to get out of this cabinet, but it was debunked as nothing paranormal than just loose doors and the floor vibrating makes the door shake, and it did it all night. So, go ahead.
The house is generally terrifying. Like, even if you had no idea about this house and take away the barbed wire, the house has a mystique when you walk up to it. Without even knowing about it, you would feel it. Like, it's a creepy looking house in the middle of the woods with this long road. Like you said, the barn's right there. It's got the old wooden look. It looks old. It looks terrifying. Like, it's one of the scariest looking houses that's not like abandoned that I've ever seen, to be
Yeah, the
honest.
house was built in 1736. So you're talking like 40 years before the Revolutionary War. So the amount of history, and this is in like colonial New England too. So it kind of gives even a little bit of credit to the girl who's hearing, the 7 dead soldiers buried in the wall. Because at first you're like, what's that got to do with anything?
Mhm.
And then if you think about it, like, that this was there was probably wars fought in this yard.
Yeah.
But just the house is so old that it has that creepy, ominous presence to it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just the footage of us walking up to. This was when we were walking towards the back parking lot. But yeah, so that's the outlining of the property. And they had said, like, so you had mentioned the soldiers that were buried, and it was believed to be like right kind of behind the house, along the side. I don't know if they've ever checked. They said that they used like one of those things, that ground penetrating radar, to see if there was anything buried underneath, and they said that they did get hits on it, as if there could be a grave underneath. So
Yeah, so I walked out there, and they had stakes in the ground that were marked off what they think are sites with human remains that they were
Oh, yeah.
researching. I don't know if
You're
they were
right.
digging. I don't know if they're planning to dig it up or what. I don't know what you do with that. Do you dig it up? I don't know, but I mean, I don't know what they're going to do, but that's what they believe, that there are human remains buried there. So that's pretty interesting. Because I know that the Arnold family has their own grave plot on the property,
Mhm.
Separate from the graveyard that Rob and I went to, but like the Arnold's buried on their property, but there is, a specific site there. So it's probably not the Arnold family that these human remains are that's found, because they're like randomly scattered. So it makes you wonder, could it be 7 dead soldiers?
And,
How weird
and
would that
really
be?
close to the house for a few of them, right? Weren't they like right
Right.
on?
Yeah. Right next to the house,
Yeah. Which
is
wild.
it's pretty scary to think about.
I guess that's going to have to be a decision for the new owners, right? They're in the process of trying to sell this house right now.
Yeah. They're trying to unload it for 1.2
Yeah.
million. I know Andrea Perrin wanted to buy it back, but 1.2 million puts her out of the race for it. So Zach
Yeah.
Baggins wanted to buy it.
Yeah, but he wanted to move the whole house,
Yeah, which is stupid.
which is crazy.
There's no way the Historical Society would allow a house that old, 1736.
Yeah.
No, that's not happening. How the hell he wants to move it to Vegas? Like, how would you even do that?
Yeah, I don't know how you would move it, and I think how do you lose out on the basement?
Yeah.
Because you're not moving the basement, so you're losing.
Yeah, I mean, in the movie, so Dave, was there much in the books that really mentioned the basement? Because in the movie, all this, like the exorcism and everything, happened in the basement, but in the actual story, it happened in like the parlor, right?
There were a few, but most of basically the way that they talked about it in the books was the basement was just too scary. No one went down there, except the dad, who didn't believe in anything. And but there was one story that one of the girls had when they were down there. She was helping her dad fix something, and she saw a figure behind him, and she freaked out, screamed, and ran upstairs, never went to the basement again. But the one thing that did happen in the basement in the books that I didn't talk about, well, I kind of mentioned it, but I didn't mention it was in the basement, was all the camera equipment that the camera crew had destroyed was all set up in the basement trying to get stuff. So when they went back down to get it, it was in the basement that it all got destroyed.
Was there a room that you guys, when we were there, found more like it felt different than other rooms to you, or like you just
The kitchen where we signed the waivers.
you thought the kitchen?
Yeah, that room it was one of the first rooms I walked into, and just that little entryway, like that little where the basement door is going into the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It's technically not the kitchen; it's the dining room, but it feels like a kitchen. Like that, those two rooms, I felt like had like a
Yeah. So you know what I'll say about it
just
is
gave me the chills.
the investigation. We had a big group, and we were having a good time, and so like, while we were doing it, like I didn't really get like creeped out. Obviously the house had a creepy vibe, but I will say, when we were wrapping up for the night, I went back inside. I'm like, let me get pictures of every room just so we have more content. And I was in the house by myself, and I was my whole attitude changed. I was scared shitless when I went back in and I was by myself. I was like, okay, this is different. And I'm like hurrying out of rooms. I'm like, and this isn't the type of stuff that usually scares me. But when I was there by myself, I was like, something's wrong. Something's off with this entire place. And I was it was actually terrifying to be in the house by myself. So
Andrew, you had probably the coolest of the ghost experiences when we were there, when you and Catherine were doing that thing in the basement with the spirit box.
Yeah, and the
what
noise
was
canceling
your
headphones.
give us your perspective from your point of view?
So that, to me, was the most compelling thing that I've witnessed. So Catherine was in that room in the basement with the well and the table.
Mhm.
The one where Dave tried to antagonize ghosts.
May or may not have.
yeah.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
They seemed real non-antagonized, but anyways. So Catherine was wearing,
That's not what the EMF was saying.
yeah, these noise-canceling headphones. And she didn't know that I was doing what I was doing. She was just instructed to say out loud what she hears. So after listening to this for a little while, I got kind of bored, so I started walking around the basement. Then I heard Catherine say out loud, "Forward." Now, mind you, it's pitch black in there. Catherine can't see anything or hear anything. She just repeats what she hears. So I walk forward 10 feet. I stop. Right when I stop, she says forward again. So I walk forward 10 more feet. She says here once I stop again. So I just go, "Hi." And Catherine goes, "Hello."
Yeah.
From the other side of the basement.
So two quick things on this. So number one, if you haven't never been to the house, you didn't really get much of an idea of what the basement is like from the pictures and the videos that we have. The basement is really like long with a lot of turns. It's not a traditional like square rectangle basement that's like one room. This is like a long hallway basement that stretches out along with the house and has like a couple of like rooms that go off to each side. So it's not a traditional basement. So for her to be on one side and for him to be on the other, there's not, it's you get the point. And then this is cool because if you're not like following, basically there's a voice telling Catherine where to direct Andrew, and when he gets to the point, the thing says hello to him.
Well, first it said here, so it got him to where it wanted him, and then it stopped him, and then
I said hello and it said hi.
it said hi back.
Vice
Yeah,
versa.
it was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That was pretty
Pretty
cool. Catherine had no idea it even happened until a few days after I told her.
Oh, really? You guys didn't talk about it that night?
We didn't, because that was like one of the first things that we did. It completely slipped my mind. And I forgot that Catherine didn't know that happened because she was there with me. But how would she know?
Right.
Right, because those noise canceling headphones are serious. Like you can't hear
Yeah.
a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I wanted to bring up the other thing. So at the end of the night, we took this photo. Rob, you had just left, which is why you weren't in the group photo. But let me just share the picture. So this is kind of the picture we took. Dave fell asleep, so we took the picture.
I didn't
anyways.
fall asleep. I went to sleep. I said I'm going
Oh,
to sleep.
you did
and
do
I
it on
laid down
purpose.
and went to sleep.
Yeah. So in this photo, and I want you to, and now I always want you to pay attention to my face, but I want you guys to pay attention to my face here. So this was photo one. This isn't doing what I wanted to. Damn, I just had it. Then photo two. Now, forgive me if it plays the live shot, but you're going to see over my face like a white mist, and then it goes away.
We have to play fast before we with Jesse.
Not really working. Shit. I'm going to see if I can get like a little slideshow going here. For now, we will discuss other things. But yeah, so we got like an orb over my face, which was kind of crazy. Let me see if I can pull it in a different program. Rob, what about you? Because you were there, and what was your thoughts on the house and which room was crazy for you?
So I had two rooms specifically that was a little different for me because I don't know if you guys recall, but I had to work the next day. So like I'm sitting there, I'm like, should I try to sleep? Should I not try to sleep? What am I going to do here? So at one point, I decided I'm going to go sleep for an hour upstairs. And that bedroom that we were in, where we showed in the video that Jesse took that freaking phone call for some reason. and the
It
ghost.
was someone that it was for. All right, so let's clear up a couple things about that. Oh, no, I'll let you finish first. Go ahead.
Okay, so that room, after everyone was out of it, there was like beanbag chairs in that room, and I'm like, I don't really want to go lay on one of these beds. And do that whole thing. So I was like, I'll go lay on one of these beanbags and I'll see how that goes. So I went and I laid on the beanbag chair and I was going to try to sleep. And that room was terrifying, like just to be in that room. And that was the room that there was another bedroom next to it. And I can't remember which one of us was in there, but as they were in there, they were doing like a reading with them, and they asked the ghost to move something, and I heard the toy car go off the shelf.
Oh, damn.
And I knew they were on the other side of the room, so they couldn't have done it. And I'm in this other room by myself, and I'm just like, this is freaking terrifying.
That was one of the reoccurring things in the books was shit would always just fly off the shelf. I don't know if it's just a crooked old house where everything's crooked, but
it was on command though, which is the weird thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like that we set that toy car up. That toy car had been there. So it'd been there all night. And then they said, I can't recall the exact words, like, can you move something? Can you show us a sign? Blah, 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 blah. And as soon as they did, boom, toy car goes flying off the shelf. And we're just like, oh, okay. And I'm in the other room and I can hear it. Right. I'm like, all right, so now I'm terrified in this room. The other room that was like kind of terrifying to me was the library.
Yeah, and that's one that they warned us about, that was like the one of the crazier rooms in the houses.
I spent some time in that room by myself, and I can't say that anything actually happened in that room. But to me, of all the rooms, when you're in that room by yourself, that's the one where you're like, oh, there's something up in this house.
Yeah, so there was real quick. There was one incident that did happen in that room, and it was Dee, my wife, and one of the other guys that was there. He was in the living room. She was, wait, why am I muted? Oh, I'm not muted. Was I muted? Sorry. Anyways, there was the library, and then there was the what is it? The parlor right next to it.
Yeah.
So the doors in there, they're kind of held open by rocks, and they said if you remove the rocks, the ghost will close the doors. So I don't know if the rocks were removed or not, but she was sitting in there, and he was sitting in there, and all of a sudden one of the doors just closes. And there's two doors. There's still one door open. They're both just looking at each other. She goes, "Did you do that?" He goes, "Nope." "Did you do that?" She goes, "Nope." They're like, "Whoa." So that was something that happened in the library. Sorry if I saw a notification that said my mic had just been unmuted. Did I tell half that story on mute, or were you guys?
No, I heard the whole thing.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's why I got spooked.
That room, and I've been trying to figure out what room was what from the books, because they're books and they don't have pictures. So I'm pretty sure the room that is now the library was Carolyn's bedroom that Lorraine Warren told her to seal off, and where she kept seeing the broken neck apparition.
Really? That is interesting.
So, but I could absolutely be wrong about that.
It would be a very small bedroom, but when you have
all the bedrooms are small.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you have the master bedroom upstairs. You had
all the bedrooms upstairs were the daughter's bedrooms.
So then where did the parents sleep?
That's what I'm saying, was that. That's what the library was.
Yeah. You do have the other section of the house that we didn't go to, because that's like that's where the family owns the house.
It could have been there, but there are pictures of that library, and I included one of them in here with a master bed in the middle. So
Did you have a room, Andrew, that like, did you get, I don't know if you got any time by yourself, was the basement your like biggest experience, or what was the deal there for you?
I spent most of the time in the basement. And I really enjoyed being in the basement. It was pretty cool. The one time I didn't really like being down there was when I was down there completely by myself. I think it was after we sent Dave down by himself. I went down by myself for like 30 minutes or so.
Oh, yeah. So I went down there, pissed off all the demons, and then you went down and I left.
Yes, that's precisely what happened. After someone told you to speak Latin.
This is true. I did fix this picture situation. So for people watching, so this was just the first picture, and we just had them take a few pictures, and then we had Boom. So you can't really see it, but yeah, there's like a white glow like over my face in this picture, and then it was gone again. So you had 3 pictures. One of them just has this strange glow over my face, and then I think there was actually a third one. Oh yeah, this one too. So it kind of moves. So you have it down like by my chin now. So that was one of many. Like I said, these pictures, because it's a live shot, I don't know, they play as like videos, and it's kind of obnoxious, but in every single one, especially down in the basement, we had one where like one like wrapped around someone. I'll see if I can find that specific one to play for you guys, but I don't want to mess around with this thing too much. But yeah, every single picture. So it was pretty interesting. But this one in particular, I looked at, I was like, oh my God, there's like something right in front of my face.
It's weird. It's not like a water drop or anything. It clearly looks like it's in the air.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So could be something.
All right. Do you want to defend yourself now?
What do you mean?
What?
Do you want to defend yourself about this phone call, or?
Oh yeah.
So we were supposed to start the live stream, and that was someone who was anxiously waiting to watch the live stream. So I probably should have just ignored the call and texted real quick. But yeah, so I picked up the phone, just let them know, like, hey, the live stream's starting in like 15 minutes. We're just doing a quick little spirit box thing.
In the middle of us trying to communicate with the spirits.
Well, it worked, didn't it?
I'd say it definitely worked, because honestly, as soon as that happened, that's when we started getting stuff, right? Like, I mean, I thought we were in there for too long before that started, so we could have gotten stuff to begin with, anyways. But man, like, as soon as that pissed off that ghost.
Yeah, and I guess for the record, it didn't call me an asshole. It called me a dick.
That's why I didn't include that audio, because I texted you guys. I'm like, guys, tell me all the experiences. I'm putting it together, and like nobody texted me back.
There was a lot. Now you got a whole timeline of things, but we did not specify what name the ghost called me. It did actually call me a dick.
Yeah, shout out to So for that timeline breakdown.
She did. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So anyways, so Jesse gets that phone call, and then shit just starts hitting the fan. It says all the stuff that we showed in the video, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but like, it was like, I hate them, or I don't like them, or something.
Yep.
And then it said your name.
That wasn't the first time either. It said my name like quite a few times.
It also said the third time it said your name, because you were setting up the camera and everything while everyone else is trying to talk to the spirit box, and I feel like it just kept like calling you out because you're like not involved in the project.
It was also calling out Catherine by name. So the reason that Catherine and Andrew went to the basement to do that spirit box thing was because it said, I have a message for you. And we're like, who do you have a message for? And it just goes, Catherine. And we're like, okay. And then I believe it told us in the basement or something like that. So that's why we went to the basement to receive its message. And that's when it kind of directed Andrew where it wanted to go, which was very interesting.
Did you see this comment here? Someone saying it's an overlaying orb about your picture?
Yes. Yep. And then
the ghost message was just to say hi.
Basically, hello. That's our message.
So
I'll take it.
It was something, and then there was another thing that happened when they were downstairs.
Actually, real quick, just on Andrew's point about the friendly ghost in the basement. So I didn't include any of this in the story because I wanted the story to be scary. But like 60% of the girls' interactions, like the daughter's interactions with the ghosts, were friendly interactions. So there was like a whole bunch of different spirits. Like there was a little kid spirit named Oliver, which they had in the movie, but his name was, I think, Rory in the movie. And that was he was friends with the youngest daughter, and they'd like play in the closet. And the same, what they thought was Bathsheba would come to the daughters, but she'd be really nice to them. The same one that was terrorizing the mother. So like and then there was the man who greeted the girls when they first moved in, who was smiling in the corner. They called that ghost Manny. That he was also a friendly apparition too. So there are.
That is interesting because, sorry to interrupt, but yes, they were friendly. And then the thing about Bathsheba. So Roger's theory about Bathsheba was that her whole plan was to become the woman of the house. So it would make sense for her to be friendly to the kids and evil to the wife, because Bathsheba, the ghost, allegedly wanted the wife out of the picture.
Right.
And she wanted Roger for herself. And Roger had a story where he's like, he was sitting in the in the dining room by himself, and he could hear the ghost coming, and the ghost would visit him all the time, and they would never have a conversation, but she would visit, and this is guy coming from a guy who
Like
was
touch
a
his
skeptic.
shoulder and stuff.
Yep. And he would always know that she was there, and he would acknowledge it. So then he said like one day he's like, I blew it. He's like, I was by myself. He was eating dinner. He was eating scallops. I don't know why I remember that part of the story, but, and he heard the ghost approaching. He saw the door open. It was the door to the basement. So if you're sitting in the dining room, the door is off to the right to the basement. There's 2 different doors to the basement. And he saw the door just open up, and he knew she was coming. And then he's like, well, he's like, if you're going to come on in, then just come sit down at this table. And then he said the door slowly closed and the ghost was gone, and he had never heard from her again. And he's like, I blew it. He's like, I know if I didn't say anything right there, she would have sat at the table and I could have had a conversation with the ghost.
So in the book, he told that same story, except when he talked to the ghost, he was very aggressive and angry with the ghost. And he said he thought that's why.
Yeah. So basically the way I just said that, but he said it like more aggressively.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do it, just come and have a fucking seat or something like that. Like he was annoyed with the ghost. It had been a long day.
He just fought with Carolyn, and she stormed off, and because they would fight over, like, he didn't believe her, and she would stress her out, and it really deteriorated their relationship to the point where they actually got divorced.
Mm-hmm. But
maybe he left her for the ghost. And he blew what? Like, what? You're shot with the ghost? What do you mean you blew it?
He was saying he blew his opportunity to sit down and be the first person to actually have like a real conversation with a ghost, which I'm sure there are many other people that would dispute that he is the first to do that. But I don't know. That was just what he claimed in that interview. But like I said, it all goes back to his theory, which would be that she's trying to replace the wife, which is so, yeah, maybe she was friendly to the kids, and maybe she was friendly to him, and maybe that was her plan. But that's just coming from Roger himself.
Is there any other experiences we want to hit on that we had before we get into probably our last subject for the evening?
I don't believe so. So yeah, so we had
Andrew,
I don't think
Dave.
so.
I don't think so. I think I covered everything.
So this is what we've been kind of alluding to in a couple other episodes that I want to hit on, and we've touched on it briefly, but the bad side of this, because as fun as this was, as great as it was, as much as I loved it, the one thing that I did not like about this whole thing is they went overboard on the inside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
They
dressed it up.
They dressed it up way too much. So on screen right now, if you're watching the podcast, Jesse's showing a picture of the Annabelle doll that they put right in the living room when you walk in. That's in the case like the Warrens had in their house. And, like one of them would be whatever. Like if you had one of those, every room you walked into in this house.
It still would have annoyed me.
Yeah, I mean, it's still whatever. And Jesse's point about like putting it in like a gift shop aspect is fine. I understand that. But every room you walked in had an Annabelle doll. Sometimes it had 2. And it's like, you're just walking around this house and you're like, guys, I know you're trying to lean into this, but you don't have to lean into it. Like we said, we drove up to this house. This house was terrifying. Like
as soon as we pulled in, man, I was like, this is scary. This place is scary. This is, you feel it. You get the chills. You're like, oh my God. And as soon as you walk in that front door and you see all the Ouija board setups and the goofy Annabelle things, like it just sucks all the horror right out of it. It's just like, this is stupid.
It's
looks
so
like
unneeded. Like that inside of that house is terrifying. It's like the old wood finish. Like it looks straight out of the year that it was built for the most part. It was a terrifying house. And then you got these Annabelle dolls. And like Dave said, you got a Ouija board in every other room. And it's like, guys, you're blowing this. Like,
yeah.
It's not even that they didn't need it. It made it less scary.
Yeah.
It's actually worse. It's a negative.
Yeah. It takes away from it. Like you don't need to do this. So like if you own or like operate an attraction like this, the attraction is the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Like you're not walking into Disney World where everything needs to be dressed up and like all that other stuff or whatever, but like this atmosphere is terrifying on its own.
Yeah.
If they did a little bit, like I wouldn't have a huge problem with it. Like it is kind of a tribute to Ed and Lorraine. Like when you walked in, they had like the Annabelle case. It was kind of cool. And I had to think about it. I was like, is that the actual one? I'm like I think it's in a museum. I think Zach Baggins actually bought it and put it in his museum. Might still be in Ed and Lorraine's, but I'm pretty sure it's in Las Vegas now.
Yeah,
but
Both
it's
dead,
still.
So I don't know if their museum still exists. I think they took that down.
I think Zach has most of that stuff.
I think he bought the doll, but either way, it's like, if you had one thing, it would be it. And then I mentioned this last week, was like the company that we booked it through, they had it on their waivers. Like, you may not bring Ouija boards, you may not do any kind of seances to conjure demons or whatever. And then you walk in and there's literally 2 Ouija boards.
You're fucking tripping over Ouija boards every other room as you walk in there. You're like, you don't want me to use this. My foot just hit 3 of them.
Yeah,
like, what are we doing here?
And you can see it in the picture that we took with all of us. Like there's actually a giant Ouija board blanket draped over the couch. It's like, oh yeah, like
I would have snuggled up with it if I didn't think my wife would divorce me for touching it.
Here's the photo. Yeah, so look, right in the back here. That's a giant Ouija board blanket, but it's against the rules. Oh man,
it's just wild. And I think we're gonna run into it with a lot of the with some of the places that we go to. We even get this in Salem, right? We were talking about this last week too. Salem goes a little overboard in certain parts where they're leaning into it too much when they don't need to, but they do it right in the other parts. You go into the House of Seven Gables, and that place is
they haven't changed a thing. Yeah. So, and that's the thing. It's like they don't have to, but they don't have like a witch in the corner like handing out candy when you walk in. Like that's just they don't need to do that because the place is creepy enough as it is. We do have a side question from Spagucci. Welcome to the stream, buddy. He says, side question for Andrew and his mustache. Did you open the box yet?
No, that box is still over there.
Oh, still in the spot from where it was streaming?
Yeah, right around there. It's covered in dust again, if you're wondering.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Very good.
And
open it on live. Don't open it on live. Ruin your life on live internet.
It's 10 viewers, Andrew. It's worth it.
Might be something to do on a future Halloween episode, depending on how drunk we get, Andrew. Maybe we'll open it live. So that was the Conjuring House. Overall, we did get a bunch of like I said, we got a bunch of orbs. I'll probably put together like a little highlight reel when I can figure out how to work these live photos. Like they don't open the way I want them to open, but and make a little short video for Instagram.
Every time we do one of these ghost investigations, is we always we didn't get anything. That sucks. And we go back and review the footage, and we're like, oh, we got a lot.
Yeah, we did. So like between the spirit box stuff, and then the orbs, and just like really intelligent responses and directions and everything like that. So it was definitely a very cool experience. Definitely a house that I would maybe go back to. I would change a few things about the way we book it, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, that was the Conjuring House, Harrisville, Rhode Island. Andrew, I want to thank you for joining us as a special guest on the show yet again. Welcome back, Captain McSlugs.
it was a pleasure.
'Twas. All right. So next week's show, Rob, what do you got for us?
We're doing Alton, Illinois. It's they base themselves as being the most haunted town in America. So it's either going to be a 1 or 2 parter. We're going to see. I'll know shortly, next few days, if that's 1 or 2 parts. But That's going to be our next episode, and then we're kind of wide open for what we're looking for episodes. So if anybody has their own story or has a specific story they want us to cover, you can shoot it to us in our DMs on our Discord, whichever you want to do, and we'll definitely take a look at it because we're always looking for, stuff we want to cover stuff like the Conjuring House, of course, but we also want to cover stuff in,
just small hometowns and
Pilipaki, Arkansas, like places we've never heard of before,
which is
also
for sure.
Yeah, it's not.
Never heard of that place.
Yeah, Paul.
But I'm in if we decide to go there.
Yeah, definitely.
We also got to figure out our next investigation.
Definitely.
Location.
Yeah, I'm actually working on that right now because we were looking to do that either this month or early next month. Just a little hint of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Shanley Hotel in New York. but I am also debating on trying to figure out a way to do some haunted lighthouses in Maine. So,
Oh, very cool. Well, we're
Yeah.
open for suggestions, so let us know. Make sure you guys drop a sub on the video. I mean, on the YouTube channel, and we will talk to you guys next time for another episode of Hometown Ghost Stories. See you guys.
Peace.
Hey guys, I'm Jesse Wilkins from Hometown Ghost Stories. I want to thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see when we go live again. Also, if you're interested, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Lots of cool perks. You can get your name in the credits, customized videos, join us on the live stream. Lots of cool stuff there. So head on over to Patreon, check out Hometown Ghost Stories. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. All the links are available below, and we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Hometown Ghost Stories.